Good morning, YouTube, and today we have 3 of the Wave of Light structure deck. I'm going to see what I can build out of just these 3 structure decks, and then later on today I'll post an updated profile of my Counterfairy deck, and hopefully you can get something from both of them. Anyway, thank you. And we're back with the completed deck of just 3 of the structure decks. My personal build, I've run 42, and this is, of course, anything you can take with a grain of salt. Let's just hop right into it. I'll explain a little bit more later on. Starting with the monsters, we have 2 of the Sacred Arch-Knight Parshath. Now, I'm going to read these new cards verbatim just so you know for certain. He's a 2800, 2300 defense. If you activate a counter trap, or if you negate the activation of a spell or trap card or monster fact, except during the damage step, you can banish 2 other fairy-type monsters from your hand, field, and or graveyard. Special summon this card from the graveyard if it was there when you activated said card, or hand, even if not. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage, so that's the same as the original, and this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can add 1 Parshath card or 1 counter trap card from your deck to your hand. So he searches himself, first off. Second, he can search any counter trap in your deck. He's just a fantastic all-around card. Definitely in this build I recommend seeing 2 because your new counter trap searches him, and you want to be able to have more targets for him. And second, you know, if you lose 1 copy, it's good to have another one just in case. Moving on, we have 1 Archlord Kristya. Kristya has always been great in these kind of fairy decks, so you don't really want to see more than 1, so we keep it at 1. Next, we have another new dude. This is Minerva, Scholar of the Sky. He's also pretty darn fantastic. Each time a counter trap card is activated, immediately after it resolves, this card gains 500 attack. And if it does, the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field. Add 1 counter trap with a different name from your graveyard to your hand. So it's really great, especially if you want to run more counter traps. This is great in recovery, and that's one of the biggest problems that this deck had was recovery of your counter traps once you've gone through them all. This guy kind of takes care of that. Oh. Is that a girl? Next, we play triple of Bountiful Artemis. She's always been a staple in counter fairy decks. Not really too much of a reason to explain her, because play a counter trap, draw a card. Great consistency. Next, we're going to run a playset of Guiding Ariadne. Also been a staple ever since she was released in Bosch. Negates all your costs for your counter traps. Just always fantastic. We run a playset of Honest, because number 1, he's searchable. Number 2, the biggest flaw that counter fairies have, in my opinion, in my experience of playing counter fairies, is the battle phase. You don't really have too much to negate that stuff. You can play around it, but once it comes to the battle phase, even with the new higher attack monsters, you don't have much to get over big dudes. So this playset of Honest really helps since he was put up to 3. I run 1 Meltiel, the Sage of the Sky, because number 1, he's another Ties to the Brethren target, and number 2, I've always liked him because he gives you spot removal and a little bit of extra life point boost if you have Ancient Sanctuary in the Sky. So it's a pretty darn fantastic. And rounding up our monsters, we run a playset of Power Angel Valkyria. She's also pretty darn awesome. If you negate the activation of a spell trap card or monster effect, and this is even specifically with a counter trap, add 1 light fairy type monster from your deck that includes Honest or anything else. You can only use this effect once per turn. So that's still pretty darn awesome, and she herself is an 1800 attack monster, which makes it just another staple you just want to throw in here. Moving on to our spells, we have run a playset of the Sanctum of Parshath. This replaces Ancient Sanctuary in the Sky because it's always treated as Sanctuary in the Sky while on the field or in the graveyard. Fairy type monsters on the field gain 300 attack and defense. Set spells and traps cannot be targeted by or destroyed by card effects. Once per turn, you can target a total of 3 fairy type monsters and or counter traps with different names in your graveyard. Stack them on top of your deck in any order. That's fantastic for recovery. It might get you into, just make sure you play that, of course, wisely, because you won't be able to search and go into some of your draw power depending on what you stack. So make sure you play that wisely. And it's a counter, or it's a continuous as well, so it makes it pretty darn nice. Next, we run a playset of Cards from the Sky. This is a this is a draw card for this kind of a deck. Obviously, there's so many more things you can play once you pick up like Pod Dualities or Card Demise or anything else. But for this structure deck build, this card is great. Banish one light fairy type monster from your hand, which you have plenty of those. And if you do draw 2 cards, you can't special summon or conduct your battle phase. But really, what you're attempting to do is to set up your counter traps. So that's pretty darn great. Next, we run a playset of Ties the Brethren. This is a fantastic reprint, and this makes this deck so much more live. I play it in my actual counter fairy deck ever since this card was released, and it's been fantastic ever since then. Next, the rounding up of our new cards that we play in this kind of a build, we run a Rebirth of the Parshath. When a spell trap card or monster effect is activated, reveal 1 counter trap in your hand, then discard 1 card and pay 1,000 life points. So negate the activation, and if you do, shuffle that card into your deck. Then you can special summon 1 Parshath monster from your deck or extra deck. Now, obviously they didn't release the extra deck monster in here, but this will be in our actual build. The thing is that while it requires you to have a counter trap in your hand and to either discard it or pay 1,000 life points, but with Guiding Ariadne, that's just completely negated, and so it gives you just generic blanket destruction. That's pretty fantastic. Next, we're on a playset of Divine Punishment. This negates monster spells and traps, but you have to have Sanctuary of the Sky in the field. But with your new continuous, the Sanctum of Parshath, that covers it. And we play a playset of Ultimate Providence, also just blanket destruction by discarding a card, but again can be negated with Guiding Ariadne. One of the most important things you kind of need every now and then is just counter traps you can activate without your opponent having to do anything. So this is something that's always live because your opponent's always going to have most of the time going to have a draw phase, or be able to search cards or add cards from their deck to their hand. So Drastic Drop Off is more of a generic trap card that just helps your you gate pluses with your counter fairies, and B, negate all your opponent's just pluses that they can get. So I've always loved it as a playset. Wonderful reprint. We run the 1 Solemn Warning you can. And rounding up our traps, we run a Light of Judgment. If Sanctuary of the Sky is on the field, discard 1 light type monster to the graveyard, add one of the following, and use one of the following effects. Look at your opponent's hand and discard 1 card, or send 1 card from your opponent controls to the graveyard, non-targetably. We don't want to run more than this because it's, of course, not a counter trap, but it's pretty fantastic because it's just more removal, and that's what this deck is focused off of, is this massive removal. And that's going to wrap up our budget version of the Wave of Light structure deck. This is something, if you just are like going to the event, you need a deck of any kind, just pick up 3 of these structure decks. This is a potential build you can utilize. It's 42 cards because I always like playing 42 cards, but you can definitely adjust that to 40 or more if you wish to. There's a lot of other good cards in this set that make this deck great, don't get me wrong, but this is my particular build that I've tested, and it seems to be running pretty well, so I hope you can take something from this. And again, I'm going to be posting an updated version of my actual Counter Fairy deck with this support in it, so please stay tuned and hope you have a great day. Thanks.